Hi, I'm John Twist of University Motors. Today I want to talk about an MGA 1500 engine that just today we've pulled out of this beautiful MGA behind me and have completely taken apart so that we could make this lovely video. Actually, we took it apart because the engine was smoking. And when I say smoking, I mean smoking. A lot. I mean, people say, oh, I use a quart every 50 miles, but my engine doesn't smoke. It's like, yes, it does. You just don't see the smoke. But this thing was smoking so much that it must have been about a quart every 10 miles. Holy Toledo. It was a lot. So we took it apart, and what did we find? We find that it had suffered a home rebuild. What can I say? An elementary, a novice rebuild years and years ago, because the guy who bought it now bought it from a guy who had it for 20 years, and the guy who had it for 20 years said the guy I bought it from had the engine rebuilt or rebuilt the engine or something. So anyway, the problem we've got here is great. I'd say is manifold, meaning is great, but since the manifold is something else here, I won't confuse the words. This is a GB engine. You can see that here on the side. BP15GB. B stands for B series. P stands for push rod. No, excuse me, petrol. 15 stands for 1500 cc's. That is the strokes 3.5 and the piston diameters 2 7/8. The G stands for MG, and the B is the series. Then we got 9861, which is just the serial number of this particular engine. It's a 4-cylinder engine, straightforward enough. Got 3 main bearings. We'll flip this thing over in a minute, but I want to show you some of the things that were done to this during the rebuild so many years ago that are no-nos. In the back end here, we've got a main bearing cap. That is that it's split here and then down the sides. So this is the main bearing cap, and this is the main bearing saddle. Well, someone took a chisel and hammered away here. I don't know if you can see these points or not. I do have a light. So sometimes when you shine a light, it ruins the view. But you can see these real scratched up areas right in here where somebody used a chisel to beat this thing apart. Bad news. The real reason that we had to take it apart again was that it was smoking so badly. Why was it smoking? Because the rings didn't work. Why didn't the rings work? Well, 2 reasons. One was the rings were bad, and secondly was because the cylinder walls had not been prepared carefully enough, and there were scratches. We're going to come in a little close here, and I'm going to try to have you see that in cylinder number 1 here, you can still see the crosshatch done by the honing stones thousands of miles ago. Number 2, we can still see the crosshatch. In number 3, not only is there a crosshatch, but there are many vertical lines. This is the cylinder that was causing most of the trouble, in that the deeper the lines, the more oil fills inside those scratches, and the oil scraper rings come down. The functional oil scraper ring is to scrape the oil off the inside of the cylinder, but if you get a scratch, it can't get inside the scratch, so the oil stays in there, and then when the piston comes up, there's some oil in there, pushes the oil up, it burns it, it's a mess. Number 4, we can still see the honing marks in there too. So the honing marks not only are too deep, but they're at the wrong angles. When you put a crosshatch on the inside of the cylinders, you got honing stones, or what we call a dingleberry brush or glaze breaker, and as that's spinning, you have to move it up and down. If you leave it in the same spot, you get a lot of circles just around. If you don't turn it at all and just move it up and down, you get vertical lines. You want to have it spinning and moving up and down at a rate that gives you a crosshatch that this angle is 60 degrees. So that's a 60-degree crosshatch. So the crosshatch was wrong, and the honing was done with way too coarse of stones. So we're going to take this guy upside down, just take a look at him like this. He's a nasty mess, but here we've got 1/2-inch fine threads put into the main cap, so you can spin a bolt into here if you have to and use a slide hammer, tunk, 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 out come the main caps, rather than using this dreadful chisel that someone used. Also, there is a main cap here, and I don't know if we can see this clearly enough, but it says on it, front. Now these two, the front and back, I mean, you'd really have to be a Neander to get these confused. I've never seen those confused, but help me out. If that says front, and this is the front of the engine, wouldn't you put it on like this? No, it was on reversed. So there are a lot of individual problems with this engine. Someone was doing it, you know, probably a buddy who says, oh yeah, man, I build race engines. And for your friend who says, oh yeah, I build race engines, you always say, those just last about one race, don't they? Anyway, we got the cam here, and the camshaft, the main controller in the engine, it decides whether the engine runs clockwise or counterclockwise. It decides whether it runs best at 800 or 8,000 RPM. And this looks like a pretty good cam, just a standard cam. But the difference between the major diameters from lobe to lobe to lobe seems to be about 5 thousandths. Normally the cam guys will tell you once you hit 10 thousandths, that's too much. But in this case, I don't know if we can see, there's some spalling. I love all these words that go with engines. Anyway, right at the very peak of this lobe here is I don't know if you can see it on the video or not. Dayton's got this kick-ass camera. It's really, really nice. But anyway, there's just a little tiny bit of pitting up here at the top. And pitting is like erosion. Once it starts, it doesn't stop. It doesn't heal itself. All it does is get worse fast. So this thing's going to need a cam. The bearings inside here have suffered from a lot of disuse, and we can also see that there's a copper line in the middle here where the dirty oil came out and was trying to lubricate the inside of the bearing, and that's where most of the dirt came, and therefore the lead indium bearing material has worn away in that, exposing the copper. Being that these bearings are steel and then they're copper plated, and then on top of the copper is a lead indium surface, which is actually your bearing material. So we've scraped it away. The bearings are coppered. That's what we usually refer to them. Plus they're very they're not smooth. They're pitted, which usually means that the engine was stored with a dirty oil for a long time, and there was some pitting and so forth from the acids in the oil. But the big problem here is that on number three, we've got the top ring, which is not a ring at all, but little segments of a ring. Okay, so here's what we could find of the top ring. I'm still struggling with my short fingernails to get the other pieces. So, okay, so we've got this, and then, now this is going to take some really good photography, but Dayton's probably pretty good at it. If we take a look at the cross section of the ring, this is supposed to be a rectangle, but you can see it's a trapezoid with the smaller vertical on the inside and the longer vertical on the outside, and that's because the ring has been flopping around inside the land. Here's the land that holds the piston ring, and the ring's supposed to fit in. These aren't too bad. These here, like number 2 and number 3, maybe in the best of circumstances you can take a 1 or 2 thousandths feeler and put it between the land and the ring, but the top ring, holy Toledo, I mean, it's just you can put a 20 thousandths feeler in there. I mean, it's just horrible. And then if we walk around here, look here, we have one part of the ring jammed under another part of the ring because the ring broke and they moved around and they got caught there. And when that happens, then you've got parts that stand proud and those scrape against the cylinder wall, hence giving it the vertical lines. In the sump, there's always goo. There's always stuff you can scrape off the bottom. This is chunky. You can feel it. I know you can't feel it, but I can. You have to trust me. It's chunky. It's got bits of ring and bits of bearing material in it, and yuck. That is why you're supposed to change your oil frequently, at least once a year. So there's other problems here too, but we had the cylinder head, which is down here on the floor. It would appear to me as though that was done a long time ago, because there's a lot of carbon buildup on top of the inlet valves. And just offhand, you don't get carbon buildup with modern gasoline. Old gasoline used to get a lot of lead in the gasoline, and you get all kinds of deposits, but not so much anymore. So this engine has been running for a long time, or when they did the rebuild, they didn't clean up the cylinder head, just took it off and did the bottom end. The crankshaft is marked standard. Obviously it went to some sort of machine shop, whoops, what was that? Buddy's machine shop or something, and we fix anything. We're gonna send this out to our machine shop, and they're gonna do a number of tasks on this engine. They're gonna grind the bearings. They're gonna clean up the scroll thread if there's any problem with the diameter on the scroll thread. Look here, they spray painted it, so they got red on the, there's red on the cam too. Look at this, huh? So here we got a painted camshaft, just in case you needed one. Anyway, they'll go ahead, they'll machine this, they'll take the pistons off the rods, make sure that the two axes here are not anything but parallel. Make sure that the hole in the bottom is actually round, and the center to the center is the same on all four rods, 6.5 inches, I think. And they're gonna take the main caps off, probably not using a chisel. They'll probably pull them off correctly. They're gonna skim a little bit off the bottom of the cap, so when the cap sits back on, it's gonna sit a little more deeply into the cylinder block. And then they're gonna run a boring bar through here, and they're gonna open those three holes back up, so all three holes are in line with each other. None of them are twisted or offset. And having done that, and then they'll also bore the block. We'll put in bigger pistons. It's gonna be real nice. Oh, cam bearings and all that other stuff too. And we'll probably have the cylinder head attended to. What's this all gonna cost here, like at a normal MG shop, in case you have a normal MG shop in your hometown? About 5,000 bucks. It's not cheap, but it's the heart of the engine. What are you gonna do? Car isn't worth anything if you can't drive it. Hey, change your oil. Change your oil, and when you do rebuild your engine, make sure that it's clean and you know what you're doing. No problem rebuilding your engine yourself. You can do it. Anybody can do it. Lots of books out there on how to do it. Don't cheat. Don't have Buddy help you. Read. He'll do a more careful job than your friend who builds race cars. Hey, until later, safety fast.